Hello and welcome to the Varietal Show. My name is Rory, and we are going to do a ride-along stream structured around a thing called a solo tabletop role-playing game. We've been doing this for the last couple of weeks. We've been doing the show for a while, and it's kind of always been this way, but we're more specifically using some other people's designs this time around. And the game today is almost certainly going to get me shoved down in the algorithm just for saying its name. But there's no avoiding that. It's called Gun Cowboy. It is an abstract game. It's a little odd. But I will deal with it with you. The game part of it doesn't really matter as much for this stream other than it produces prompts for us. Now, if you're watching this not live and you want to just get to the point, down in the description below, there's going to be little timestamps, timestamp for the explanation, timestamp for the writing, and timestamp for the final result we come up with, which is going to be journals from a cowboy who is old, bitter, and hollowed out by a life of violence. Which means we may as well get to the lit game explanation. I see GS is in the chat. Good evening, GS. It says, great vintage graphic. Thanks to the Smithsonian for that one. Also, speaking of graphics, you may have noticed that I have some art that I've been starting to put up in the background of my streams. I wish I remembered what studio I got these pieces of art from. They told me they had no card. I got them from a fan expo. They're gorgeous. This stream is not doing it service. But yeah, I honestly can't remember. But the this graphic of a spaceship, if you don't know, is a spaceship from Cowboy Bebop, which is an anime from the 90s that is technically a sci-fi, but it's got real cowboy vibes. So I felt like it would suit our show well. Holly's House says, eating my chips and watching Rory, #blessed. What kind of chips? Also, what kind of chips is everyone's favorite? I have strong opinions on this, and I expect others will as well. What's your least favorite type of chip, your most favorite type of chip? And if you're tuning in from England, in Canada, that's just crispy crisps, is what you would call them. Okay, so lit games. We're going to do a lit game tonight called Gun Cowboy. This was voted on by people last week. They wanted to do a Western. This is a solo tabletop RPG, which is a fancy pants way of saying it's basically structured like a role-playing game. Means you take on a role. In this case, we're going to take on a particular type of cowboy. And then you sort of use dice and cards and whatever to get prompts and write. Most solo tabletop RPGs are about writing, which is good because this is a stream about writing. If you want to help me write my cowboy character here with the chat, you join in the chat, you let me know what stuff I should add, how I should interpret the cards we pull, whatever else. But if you also just want to write along, it's a write along stream in your own time, in your own word processor, using the prompts we pull, or just the ones you want to, go right ahead. And if you feel comfortable, share them in the chat or share them in the comments of this video if you're not watching it live, and I'll be sure to read them. So you'll notice that this is called Gun Cowboy, a journaling game of dead outlaws. Now, it's not like a zombie game. It's all very metaphorical and melancholy. And when I said in the title, if I haven't changed it, that this is basically Tombstone, the 1993 Val Kilmer film. There's other people in it, but they don't matter. It's Val Kilmer going, I'm your huckleberry. That's the whole film. You don't even need to watch it. It's a great film, but that's the best part. Which is technically about Wyatt Earp's story and the shootout at the OK Corral and all of that, but it's very loose. And more so what it's about is sort of the decline of violent men. And this RPG is very focused on that idea. So it has a bunch of weird mechanics. I'm not going to explain all the mechanics because the one thing I know about my audience, they do not absorb mechanics when I explain them anyways. The mechanics matter to me because I need to draw them. But the short version of it is we have a deck of regular cards. We're going to pull 3 cards per turn. Each card is associated to some strange sentence loosely based on a Western theme, and then we need to interpret them to take the word of the games like tarot cards, which means we could take them very literally or we could take them very metaphorically. There's more to it than that if you ever want to try this game yourself, but that's going to be good enough for us. We also have 3 stats. Those 3 stats will be about how we resolve a situation. We can always run away, but if we run away, it's not resolved. It becomes a lingering thing we have to deal with. But our stats are good, quick, ugly, and gun. Good, quick, and ugly, we get the number 3 in each of those stats. Every time we use it, as I understand it, we remove one of our numbers. The way the scoring works is if your gun score is equal or higher than the remaining attribute, whatever your highest attribute, you are overcome by your reliance on violence. Because gun starts at 0. I don't think it starts at 0 and it always wins. Like I said, this is a lot of it's a very interesting game, but I'm kind of removing the stuff that doesn't work for the stream too well, or at least skimming over it. The way that, instead of rolling a dice, the way that we check if we've won something is we flip a coin. I thought it would be more fun to use a poker chip and mark one side of the poker chip with a felt pen, because I got a lot of them. Which means the first choice, chat, is what color poker chip should we use? Whoop. Oh my god. Gia says, I thought running away resolved everything. Okay, so there's white, green, red, and blue. White, green, red, and blue. What's going to be our coin? This is our coin we flip to see how our fates go. Okay, and I'll set up for our journal. Journal entry 1. We'll draw our cards. I'll read you what you got. And the most important thing is we're trying to use this as inspiration, so don't get too hung up on being either too literal about it or including everything we pull up if you want. It's just about coming up with stories of a cowboy. The perspective of the game is that our cowboy is in the decline of his life. Spent his whole life with violence. That's why gun always wins. It will win a situation, but it doesn't win us the game. The more we use it, the worse. Okay, we got lots of votes for green, which is good because it's my favorite color. Now, I only have a blue felt pen, which is what I'm going to mark one side with it. And I have marked it with an X. So, when it comes to a situation, if we decide to use one of our stats to resolve it, I'll flip it. Chat, I think I already lost it. There it is. Chat, you'll call it. We'll say that X is heads. I'm going to put that in the document. X is head, you'll say, heads. And we win if you're right. Okay. Which means it is time to play the game. At the start of each journal entry, we'll draw 3 cards. So, 1, 2, 3. The cards we got in order was a king of clubs, an ace of diamonds, and a queen of hearts. So I'm going to put those down for a second. And just stick with me, because once we know this, we can make it work. Now, we're supposed to flip them as we go, but I'm going to kind of do this in order. Now, I'm going to read you what it says, and you're going to say, why doesn't Rory have a cowboy hat? Well, I have a cowboy hat behind me, over my shoulder, but my massive head fits nothing, especially with headphones on, so there's just no way. Okay, so I'm going to read what the rules say about this. Honestly, chat, we'll make of it what we want to make of it, so don't feel too restricted. Draw 3 cards at the start of each journal entry and lay them face down in a row. I've done that. Flip the first card over and read the prompt aloud, which I'll show you in a minute. That card, this is where it gets weird, is the past. That which has happened in a place just before you come riding up this bend. Ask yourself, what happened here 5 minutes ago, 5 years ago, so on. Now you flip the second card and consult the prompt. This card is the moment. What is happening right now? This might be the person calling the shots, or it might be what this place looks like currently, or it might be a spiritual moment which you come upon internally. See what I mean? Very abstract. Flip the third card and consult. This is the dilemma, the problem or choice facing those present in this moment, which you may help to resolve or make worse. Doug Vince says, can relate to massive head syndrome. Also, hello, Doug Vince. Yeah, I've got this big Scottish Norwegian head. It's not made for, this hat's for my little Japanese partner and a much smaller head than me. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. We're going to flip the first card. It's King of Clubs. And like any game, it's going to make more sense as we go. So, like, that's why I'm not dwelling on it. Don't feel like, you know, oh, I'm too dumb for this. It doesn't matter. It's just here to help us write a story. King of Clubs is the Homesteader. Again, we're interpreting these, like, abstractly like tarot cards. So this is supposed to be the past, what just happened or something. Whoever he is, has carved something from this land by the work of his hands. Something firm and real and stolen. So you can see why I have concerns about how chat's going to do with this. It's more meditative. We're going to try and make an entry out of this. Holly's House says, where is Andrew? He loves cows and he's a boy. That's true. Andrew was one of the ones who voted for this. The next one is an Ace of Diamonds. Ace of Diamonds would be the present, the coin in the gutter. It glitters among the mud, discarded or forgotten. It is value misplaced. Do you stoop and pick it up? I'm going to copy all our prompts over. And then the final one is the dilemma, the thing about which we have to resolve, which is the Queen of Hearts. Oh. The Hermit, he is a steward of the land. He walked down the same road as you, but once, but turned away. And I'm assuming that means the road of a sort of violent cowboy. Okay. Now, I'm not going to pretend any of this means a ton to me. We're going to make it make sense in our journal. Which means that we... Oh, I have double of the coins here. Okay, so someone carved something from this land. This is the past by just like a few minutes ago or maybe a couple of years by the work of his hands, something firm and real and stolen. Okay. Maybe I have come across maybe this takes place under the what is it called? Mount Rushmore. I don't think the timeline lines up. I think Mount Rushmore was carved like in the 30s or something. I don't know. I'm not American. But Mount Rushmore is what comes to mind for that because it's, well, it's stolen and it's carved. It's firm and it's real. So maybe it takes place under Mount Rushmore, like, or maybe I rode past it or whatever. And then in the present, I found some money in the ground, basically. That's the way I'm taking coin in the gutter. And when I picked it up, some fellow who's a hermit out here obviously told me to put it back down. How do we feel about that interpretation, chat? Chat's like, I don't know what's going on. Which means, before we start writing, we have to decide what this situation is gonna... Well, we could start. How about this? The cowboy carved Mount Rushmore? Not necessarily. It can just be a setting. So I'll write the first paragraph, see if it makes more sense to people. 18, I don't know, 68. Who knows? Maybe like the Civil War is going on or something. I really don't know. 1868. What state is Mount Rushmore in? I don't even know. I'm sorry, America. Your geography doesn't come up much. I imagined it's similar for Canada. 68. Big carved. Under some carved faces. I came riding up on what's the horse's name? I'm gonna call it Smokey for now, but give me some good horses' names and I'll change it over. Came riding up an old Smokey. And the dawn light was cut away by this big old cliff. They are carving faces into. Must be important folk. But I don't know them. Gia says it's okay, we don't need to know the rules. You really don't. The rules are a way of getting... Oh, flapjack. Excellent. For the horse. It's just a way to get ideas. This one, the reason why I feel like people are going to struggle with this is because it relies, again, on a kind of tarot level reading, where you take it very kind of metaphorically. And one thing I've found is the average person is a bit intimidated by metaphor. So I can understand that, but, you know, I think we'll find something still. Must be important folk, but I don't know them. Workers were camping and traveling back and forth. Wait, I don't want to put that many N's in a sentence. Workers were camping nearby. They were traveling back. Whoops. Back and forth. So I searched about the roads for any dropped goods. Found a sack of gold bits far up on the curve. GS says South Dakota. See, I don't know anything about South Dakota. Completed in 1941. Yeah, I knew for sure we are wrong. Let's just pretend it's other curved faces. Found a sack of gold bits far up on the curve. And was fixin' to take them into town for a bath and some food when an old fella rode up on a donkey, aiming his shotgun at me. Told me, put down the gold and get a move on. Holly's house says everyone I know has visited Rushmore, so it's completely underwhelming. Yeah, well, I mean, who cares about a bunch of old men's faces when you're in a beautiful land, is my opinion on it. Okay, so I've set up a situation. We now have to decide how we want to resolve this situation with the old man who wants us to put down the gold. Which means we have to choose one of our skills. So there's good, quick, ugly, and gun. Gun will always work. We don't flip for gun. The idea is to try not to use gun. The good means, you know, you stand tall, act with valor, whatever else. Quick means, you know, being sharp, cool, smart, giving a good comeback, outwitting him, lying, things like that. And then ugly is like labor, callous work, letting your body take a blow, you know, trying to run away with the gold kind of thing. So we have to pick a stat and then we have to flip a coin. So how do we guys want to resolve this? Some hermit rode up. We found fair and square a pile of old gold. He's telling us to put it down and leave. What do we want to do? Do we want to be good, quick, or ugly? Or gun, or just shoot him. Then I'll flip our coin, see if it works. And then based on what happens, we'll write. I have another game I'd like to try next week called, well, I don't remember what it's called, but it's about a hermit crab looking for a shell. It's called Everyone Deserves a Home. That's what it's called. I think that'll be fun next week. So this is where we get to kind of... Time for a hermit beating. Okay, so you want to go ugly? Or do you want to shoot him? GS says quick, trick him. Okay. Think about what trick we're going to do. And call it. Heads or tails. Heads or tails. We're going to try and trick him. Call it heads or tails. If it's a split, I'll split it. All he sells just because he's old and weird doesn't excuse him from the people's elbow. Not sure if you're allowed to use more than one thing. Let me double check that. Well, you guys tell me heads or tails. Yeah, I think you can only use one, but it takes one off, I believe. Okay, we got a vote for tails, so that would be the side without the X. And it's the side with the X. We weren't quick. So, I tried old Joey Quick Lips line and said, "My dear fellow, this is the gold I pulled from the river with my own 2 hands, and it will feed my family, thank God, since they are near starvation." But the old hermit let off a shot that winged me and shouted, "Ain't no goddamn rivers anywhere near here. If you're a family man, then I'm a cactus. Drop the sack, or I'll drop you. Holly's house says, Joey Quicklips, this is the West, not the mob. I don't know. There's a lot of Italians in the West at that point. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe not. Whatever. Go. There's lots of history channels that know when Mount Rushmore was made and stuff. Maybe that's more your own. I made a break for it. Pulling some pellets out of my shoulder. But otherwise, no worse. Oh wow, I'm way off the bottom here. For the wear. GS says, tell the hermit a tale about how if he leaves the gold, it will multiply. And then Holly's house says, GS, you've been watching too many Tuesday night fairy tales. Okay. That's it. There's an entry. So let's do journal entry 2. We'll get 3 more cards. And then we'll eventually slip away from confused to some idea of what it might mean. I think that means we need to take one off. Quick. Okay. There we go. 1, 2, 3. All right, cowfolk. The first one we pull is the 6 of diamonds. Let's see what the 6 of diamonds is. Is the devil. He is standing at the crossroads in a silk velvet suit, the color of red wine. He wants to buy your soul. Like, we could make that literal. We could say it's like, use it as sort of a metaphor for maybe a guy who runs a gambling institute or something like that. Like, there's lots of ways you can go about it, but that's the past. So that was just before whatever the next situation is going to be, which is a 7 of diamonds. Okay. The cursed treasure. Rumors of gold have lured dozens to their death. When found, it shines with an ethereal light. Its true owner is long departed. This is their legacy. Ooh. We're getting real supernatural out here in the desert, aren't we? See, chat's more on board with this one. And then our third one is about the dilemma, is what we have to resolve. And that's a Joker card, which I should have removed. It might mean something in this one, but I'm not going to look it up. Okay, so the next one I grabbed is 7 of hearts. 7 of hearts is... The land is our mother. She remembers it all. Isn't that clear? Don't you feel in your heart that she remembers? Okay, I don't really know what that means on a dilemma level. If somebody else has an idea, I would take myself to be pretty good at sort of metaphor and such, but some of these are a little beyond me. Oh, perfect. Holly's house is already weaving a plot. See, we're already finding a story, right? Okay, so what Holly's house is proposing is the hermit does shoot him, but the devil appears and says he can live if he signs over his soul. Okay, so let's say that the next morning, I woke and saw the wound was a bit worse than I had been thinking last night. This morning, not the next morning. This is a journal entry. Oh, yeah. See, there you go. Holly's house is on it. Is working with the metaphorical nature of it. This morning I awoke and saw the wound was a bit worse than I'd been thinking last night. It's oozing. And if I shift, it bleeds again. I feel thin as a ghost already. I think I was fixing to die, but tried to make a ride for town. Then I met a gentleman in a fine... What color suit did they give him? Was it red or was it something else? Oh wait, I cut and pasted. When is it? Silk velvet suit. Silk and velvet are two things, are they not? The color of red wine. And it... Let's just use the quote. Silk velvet suit, the color of red wine. The dust didn't dare collect on it. Neither. So I knew it was the old man himself come up from the flames to get me. GS says no, silk is the fiber the velvet is made out of. You gotta know, I've been sewing since I was like 6 years old, and I had no idea that velvet and silk were of the same. Huh. So no, it was the old man himself come up from the flames to get me. He smiled and said, "My boy, you look sick. I would very much regret such a good soldier dying out here in the middle of nowhere. Perhaps I can do a little to help you." I was dying anyways, so I entertained his offer. Just says you can have silk velvet, cotton velveteen, and rayon velvet. I don't think I've ever felt silk velvet then. Everything felt like fuzzy hell. Okay, so Holly's house says the hermit does shoot him, but the devil appears and says he can live if he signs over his soul. Okay, and the crossroads are a choice. He can go back in time and hand over the gold and live, or choose to do what he did and dies. He's kept the gold, but no amount of riches are going to save him. Okay, we got to flip a coin over something. What would this be? I think I would say this is ugly. Making a deal with the devil. I'm sure this isn't necessarily in the spirit of what they mean by ugly, but I think it's ugly. I think if we succeed at this and the devil isn't tricking us or something, it's ugly or quick. I don't know. But let's say ugly because we haven't flipped on ugly. So I need heads or tails. We'll see heads or tails if I can bring myself to make a deal with the devil successfully. So heads or tails, chat. Make your vote. And then I'll flip the coin. We'll see if I succeed. He said I could go back. Give away the gold. And then carry on the poor man forever. Or I could keep the gold and I'd live, but my soul was his. Holly's house says, I can't feel my feet. Well, I hope that's because they're cold and not because of serious neurological problems. Oh, I see Big Drew's there. Big Drew says, if the cowboy can time travel, can he go back and say whether the dress was blue or black instead of white or gold? I doubt he'd care. Okay, GS says heads. I think we agreed that the X is heads. Oops. And we succeed. Although I don't know if I call this success, but since I did this on Ugly, I said, you can have my soul if you can even find it. It's worn thin by a lifetime of wicked doings. The devil smiled and nodded. I felt better and carried on into town to spend my sack of gold. Big Drew says, sorry friends, I've had a tough day. I'm sorry to hear that, Big Drew. I'm mentally exhausted and bowing out as a result. Feel free to listen in. You don't always have to participate if you're not feeling it. GS says, can you trick the devil? Could have. Too late now. There's another entry down. I like how this is going. I like this kind of weird... this was a good idea, Holly's house. I like this. Okay, entry 3. Which means I gotta draw 3 more cards. I know what you're thinking. Rory, you like every game you play, and that's true because I like writing, which is the point of this show. Okay. Our first card is a 5 of clubs. Let's see what the 5 of clubs is. This will probably be our last entry. 5 of clubs, the abandoned worksite. The place was a hub of activity, once a beehive. Now it is empty, not even worth the scrap. Cost of tearing it down for scrap. Ooh, I've got an idea for that. We could say that he goes to a town that used to be like hoppin', like a mining town. You know how they used to have those? But he discovers that it's abandoned and he's got nowhere to spend his gold. GS says this would make a really different Western series, not what people would expect. Yeah, it's kind of like if David Lynch directed a Western. It's basically Twin Peaks, but as a Western, which is a cool concept. A 6 of clubs. Let's see what a 6 of clubs gives us. That's our present situation. 6 of clubs is... Hey, wait, that's the devil. We shouldn't get that twice. I must have shuffled them in the top. Let me take a bunch of the top cards off. Redraw the next 2, because you should not get repeats in this game. Okay, it's the 2 of clubs. The fist fight, finally. The rage of those who have little else. Outside the bar, outside the stable, outside the factory, the brawl with each other, fists and kicking and biting. It doesn't mean we're fighting, by the way. It could be a fight we witness. And then a 5 of diamonds. Which is The tapped mine. The gold here is gone. Hey, that works, because I was talking about a mine. The iron long forged. Move on. There was nothing else to extract. What lives here now? Excellent. So we're going to take our sack of gold to a town that we used to go to, and then we're going to discover that it's all gone, abandoned. And I guess something about a fist fight and a worn out mine. And of course, there's got to be a dilemma. That's what we're working towards. A dilemma we can flip a coin on. From my stagecoach running days, I remembered there was a mining town not far up from where I met the devil. I figured he was probably hounding me now. Oh, you know what it could be? It could be the hermit. Because technically we never resolved the hermit, and in this game, the hermit follows you. So maybe he gets up to the mine and discovers that that's where the hermit lives. GSS Spaghetti Western. Yeah, if I wasn't a little tight for time, I would have gotten you guys some Western music. I figured he was probably hounding me now, since I was just a bag of bones carrying his soul. Well, maybe I never saw nothing, and I was just half mad with infection. Either way, I went to the mining town. And it was shut up. The streets were nothing but dust, sweeping up tumbleweeds. The buildings were hollowed out, and long rated. The mine must have been tapped. And everyone packed up and left. I was hungry in a dead old ghost town with a sack of useless gold. They're talking about spaghetti westerns being shot in Italy. Yep. They were also heavily based off of, most of the most defining ones were heavily based off a genre of samurai films by Akira Kurosawa. I don't think I'm blowing anyone's mind with that. I think people know that. But it's interesting that, like, what is largely considered such a quintessential American classic, you know, the idea of the Western, of the whistle, the gunfight, and all of that, was shot in Italy and based on tropes and structures from a Japanese film and story style. Like, it's the least American thing you could ever do. It's very strange. It's kind of like how in Vancouver, we invented the California roll in sushi up here, which is bizarre because it's a Japanese food. And you would think the California roll meant it was invented in California. Okay. I was hungry in a dead old ghost town with a sack of useless gold. When the light dimmed and that Death Valley chill came, I started. I couldn't find a good building I didn't trust. Or I could trust not to fall on my head in the night. So I made a hike up the hill to the old mine. As I approached, I noticed a flicker of light. Someone was camping. Someone was waiting. Holly's House says, but gauchos of Argentina are original cowboys. That is true. They were cowboying before the West was won. The West was won. I mean, you're right. That is the turn of phrase, but my God, is one doing a lot of heavy lifting there. The great lie of Manifest Destiny was realized. I noticed a flicker of light. Someone was camping. Someone was waiting. Okay, so it's going to be the guy. How do we want to resolve this, guys? We could do good. We've sold our soul for this gold, though, but we could turn the gold over, resolve it that way. We could do it quick. We could try to outwit him again, but that didn't work last time. We could go ugly, which is like, maybe ask him, like, we'll have a fist fight and see who's still standing. Although I think gun is meant to represent any violent action. So ugly might just be, shove him down and take his money or something, or threaten him. Or we can try gun. Gun just works. We can shoot him. So how do we want to resolve him? How do we want to leave this story, this strange little story tonight? By the way, while I wait for chat to make a decision about that, I should mention, if you want to follow me on Mastodon, at Rory Star with 2 R's, like Ringo Starr. If you want to follow me there, that's right, Mastodon, you got to do that little tag too. I've been there for a little while and I still forget how it works. It's Rory Star at social, I think is my full tag. mstdn.social. Anyways, if you want to follow me there, during the week I play these games just for myself and I post results up on Mastodon. I recently played one where I'm a gardener in the wasteland. I don't know if I could play it on here. It's a longer game. It was really fun. It was well received. Somebody said they cried when they read it, which is very touching. Holly's House says, no good tonight. Not sure what that's in reference to. But then says, these soul-selling tales are always a morality story. He has to die and regret his decision. Okay. Well, let's go with quick again. Let's say he tries to talk his way out of it. Like, let's put him back in the position. I caught the glint of a rifle spyglass. I called out Now, who is up there? I don't mean no harm. But I did set my hand on my revolver. But I can do it if I must. And we'll count that as a threat. So let's go with ugly. Call it heads or tails. Chat, heads or tails. Heads or tails. My arm's gonna get tired. We'll find out if we successfully threaten. Holly's House says it's called a sight, Rory, not a spyglass. Back in that time, I'm not sure that it is called a sight. Iron sights were a thing for sure, but I don't think they actually called the magnifying on top of a rifle in like the 19th century. I'm not sure that they called it a scope is the word you're looking for, by the way. Okay, we got to vote for heads. Also, I'm kind of writing this like this guy's a bit of an idiot. Holly's House says no glass in a rifle sight in 1869. That I don't know. I'd have to check. I've seen some pretty old rifles with glass. Also, who cares? Like, I'm not writing Western fiction here. We just had the story opened with an anachronistic Mount Rushmore. I think we'll be fine. Okay. GS says heads. So if it's heads, it means that our threat will work. If it's tails, it means that it won't. I've already flipped it. It is X is heads, I think I said. So if it's X, we win. If it's tails, we lose. It is tails, which is very poetic. There wasn't even a word spoken. I probably wouldn't have even known who did it had I not heard the bray of a donkey. That clever old devil. Probably told him what way I went with his gold. Now I'm lying here in an old ghost town under a dead mine, doing some dying myself. I doubt I'll make another entry. In this old book. But let's see if I got another morning in me tomorrow. That. Doug says he'll be back next week. He had to drive his family somewhere, but really likes the idea. Oh, that's cool. Thank you for coming by, Doug. Okay. See, it started weird, We stuck it out. I think we tried to quick twice, and I think we tried ugly once. But we stuck it out, and it gave us ideas. That's the whole point. Okay. If you are jumping ahead to this section of the video, it's because you just want to know the results. This game was, we likened to during the discussion, a bit like if David Lynch made a Western. It was very metaphorical, very kind of dreamy, and Twin Peaksy. So take that as it will, but it involves pulling 3 cards and then using those as prompts on a journal entry. I'm not going to reread all the cards. I will just read you the journal entries. Also, it includes anachronistic stuff like Mount Rushmore in 1868 and some other non-accurate stuff. It's a story I wrote in an hour. I don't know. Go watch a history stream if you want that. Okay, I came riding up an old flapjack, and the dawn light was cut away by this big old cliff they're carving faces into. Must be important folk, but I don't know 'em. Workers were camping nearby. They were traveling back and forth, so I searched about the roads for any dropped goods. Found a sack of gold bits far up on the curve, and was fixing to take them into town for a bath and some food when an old fellow rode up on a donkey, aiming his shotgun at me. He told me to put down the gold and get a move on. I tried old Joey Quicklip's line and said, "My dear fellow, this is the gold I pulled from the river with my own 2 hands, and it will feed my family, thank God, since they are near starvation." But the old hermit let off a shot that winged me and shouted, "Ain't no goddamn rivers anywhere near here. If you're a family man, then I'm a cactus. Drop the sack or I'll drop you." I made a break for it, pulling some pellets out of my shoulder now, but otherwise no worse for the wear. Pulling some pellets out of my shoulder now. Under a cliff, a mile or so off, but otherwise no worse for the wear. Journal entry 2. This morning I awoke and saw the wound was a bit worse than I'd been thinking last night. It's oozing, and if I shift, it bleeds again. I feel thin as a ghost already. I think I was fixing to die, but I tried to make a ride for town. Then I met a gentleman in a silk velvet suit. On the way, I'm going to add in. On the way, I met a gentleman in a silk velvet suit, the color of red wine. The dust didn't dare collect on it neither, and so I know it was the old man himself come up from the flames to get me. He smiled and said, "My boy, you look sick. I would very much regret such a good soldier dying out here in the middle of nowhere. Perhaps I can do a little to help you." I was dying anyway, so I entertained his offer. He said I could go back, give the gold, and then carry on the poor man forever. Or I could keep the gold and live, but my soul would be his. I said, "You can have my soul if you can even find it. It's worn thin by a lifetime of wicked doings." The devil smiled and nodded knowingly. I felt better immediately and carried on into town to spend my sack of gold. Entry 3. From my stagecoach running days, I remember there was a mining town not far from where I met the devil. I figured the devil was probably hounding me now since I was just a bag of bones carrying his soul. Or maybe I never saw nothing and I was just half mad with infection. Either way, I went to the mining town, and it was all shut up. The streets were nothing but dust sweeping up tumbleweeds. The buildings were hollowed out and long raided. The mine must have been tapped, and everyone packed up and left. I was hungry in a dead old ghost town with a sack of useless gold. When the light dimmed and that Death Valley chill came, I couldn't find a good building I could trust not to fall on my head in the night, so I made a hike up the hill to the old mine. As I approached, I noticed a flicker of light. Someone was camping. Someone was waiting. I caught the glint of a rifle's spyglass. I called out, "Now who's up there? I don't mean no harm," but I did set my hand on my revolver. "But I can do it if I must." There wasn't even a word spoken. I probably wouldn't have even known who did it had I not heard the bray of a donkey. That clever old devil probably told the old man what way I went with his gold. Well, now I'm lying here in an old ghost town under the dead mine doing some dying myself. I doubt I'll make another entry in this old book. Or anywhere. But let's see if I got another morning in me tomorrow. Well, I see Holly's house had to bounce. Taking care of kids. Thank you for coming in and helping, Holly. Your ideas were great. Yeah, so that's Gun Cowboy. It is, again, these, I don't know if it's still on. I got these games from itch.io, which is just a collection of indie games, including like video games and stuff like that. But this one in particular, I got out of a package called Solo But Not Alone 3, which is a pack deal where you spend $10, you get 150 solo tabletop RPGs, and we've been playing through them, and we'll be playing through them for a while because I'm enjoying the hell out of them. And yeah, this one, like all games, it starts slow, you get used to it, and then you get into it, and then you have a story. But GS says, good acting, Rory. Well, thank you. That's very kind of you to say. Yeah, I think you guys, if you haven't already, reminder that on Tuesday nights we do a folktale and folklore reading, and this last Tuesday night I was doing a folklore reading about dwarves, and which is actually a pretty complex and strange topic. And I was reading some German folklore that has previously been untranslated. Up until probably about this year or last year. I'm friendly with the translator of it. So go hear what dwarves were like, because they certainly aren't quite the way that Tolkien presents them. And I have a theory as to why Tolkien presents them the way they do, as well as other people in the last 100 years. And I think it is good fun. You should go and check it out. If you're not interested in hearing stories, though, if you just like the ride-along streams, I'll be back here next Thursday. And I don't know what I'm going to be doing, but you guys, well, I have the closing splash screen on. You let me know which one you're more interested in. There's two that I think stand out for me. The first one is a game called Everyone Needs a Home. Or something to that effect, and it's about a little hermit crab trying to find a shell and the various things that get in. You use cards and stuff to find various things that get in his way. Or we can do trying to remember what it's called. We could do one that's about sort of wandering into a strange magical land and writing what you find there. It is also very abstract, like this week's was. So yeah, if you guys have a preference. If you don't have a preference, don't worry about it. I'll just do whichever one makes the most sense to me. Anyways, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. Get out of my shop.